I've spent the last few days sharing meals with Colum and conversations, and he fancies himself a skilled listener, which I think is what makes him an audacious and compelling writer. Colum believes, as I think a lot of us believe this, that storytelling is the key to this very large door that could unlock this serene sort of peace. He is a storyteller himself, but like the best storytellers, and I think many of you know I'm biased, Colum's stories are rooted in poetry. Over our meals, Colum read Jim Harrison, he quoted Sam Beckett, he wrote a whole book in the image of Rilke. Colum once said, "In another life, I would have liked to be a poet. I just can't stop the lines in time, so I'm a novelist." His language, his stories, they're exactly that poetry that collapses onto itself, relentless and unstoppable. In Let the Great World Spin, which I just finished, it's a book that won the National Book Award, which is a very hard thing to do. Colum writes that most of the time people use the word love as just another way to show off they're hungry. The way he said it went something like this: glorify their appetites. I know in these long and dark and collapsing nights, I know that we are all very hungry for light and hope and conversation, and indulge me, grace. I think we're all craving grace. And so to feed these appetites of ours, please help me welcome Colum McCann.
Wow, you don't beat that introduction. Yetta, thank you. And I also say it's very funny because at 6 o'clock the other morning, I went to Yetta's yoga class. But we'd all been out the night before, and I was still drunk. So I was doing the hair of the downward dog. And I thought, Livingston, this is the place. I have to say, I came to this country when I was 21 years old, and I took a bicycle across the United States. I started in Boston, went down to Florida, across to New Orleans, into Mexico, back up through New Mexico, Colorado, Utah, Wyoming, and sorry, I missed Montana. And now I know what I missed. And I think walking around the town with all its tensions and all its charms and all its moments of beautiful grace was really fantastic the past couple of days. And I felt this great energy from people. And an energy that suggested change. And we were talking earlier about, not to get too deeply philosophical about this too early, about Gramsci, the Italian social scientist who talked about being a pessimist of the intellect and an optimist of the will, and the ability to balance these two things together. A pessimist of the intellect being a person who looks at the world and says, this is dark, there are bad things happening all around us. But then the optimist of the will is the person who believes that she or he or they can get away from that particular moment and inject a willingness to believe that there's something else beyond. And it really did feel to me, not in a sentimental way, not in a nostalgic way, that there was something powerful happening here. We are living in broken times, we all know that. It's been apparent for a long time. I think the theme of these particular times might be repair. And how do we get to repair? And how do we repair one another? And how do we talk to one another again and reconnect? And so I'm going to do, before I talk to Elliot, who's one of my favorite writers, and I'm really delighted that I'm going to be able to get a chance to talk with him on stage. We have to be mannered. We're not mannered normally when we meet. No, we'll have to be mannered. Don't be? Okay. But I want to read from a tiny bit from a novel called A Paragon, which is also about approach and also about storytelling and meeting one another. It's one of the most contentious areas of our times. It's a cipher for so many places that we happen to be, Israel and Palestine. And I went there in 2015 and I met these two men called Rami and Bassam, and they basically reached into my rib cage and turned my heart backwards in the most extraordinary way. One afternoon when they told me about their lives and how they had lost their daughters. I went ahead then in separate incidents in the conflict or the war, whatever words you happen to choose. It's all very difficult to put a language on. But I went ahead and wrote, spent 5 years writing a novel about them. It's called A Paragon, and anybody who knows what the word a paragon means, without having read the book, you deserve a pint tonight. Because I certainly didn't know what a paragon means. And a paragon is a shape, an ogon, a polygon, a shape with a countably infinite number of sides. And this is just the very middle of the novel. It's section 1001, it's written in 1001 cantos. This is the very middle of the novel. And it gets very factual at the beginning and then turns to poetic at the end. So this is sort of music that's going through there. And this is it, 1001. Once upon a time, and not so long ago, and not so far away, Rami Elhanan, an Israeli, a Jew, a graphic artist, husband of Narit, father of Elik and Guy and Yigal, father too of the late Smadar, travelled on his motorbike from the suburbs of Jerusalem to the Kremlin monastery in the mainly Christian town of Beit Jala near Bethlehem in the Judean hills to meet with Bassam Aramin, a Palestinian, a Muslim, a former prisoner, an activist born near Khalil, husband of Salwa, father of Arab and Arin and Muhammad and Ahmed and Iba, father too of the late Abir, 10 years old, shot dead by an unnamed Israeli border guard in East Jerusalem. Almost a decade after Rami's daughter, Smadar, 2 weeks away from 14, was killed in the western part of the city by 3 Palestinian suicide bombers, Bashar Sawala, Youssef Shuli, and Tawfiq Yassin, from the village of Asara al-Shamaliya near Nablus in the West Bank. A place of intrigue to the listeners gathered in the red brick monastery, perched on the hillside, in the mountains of the beloved, by the terrace vineyard, in the shadow of the wall, having come from as far apart as Belfast and Kyushu, Paris and North Carolina, Santiago and Brooklyn, Copenhagen and Terezin, on an ordinary day at the end of October, foggy, tinged with cold, to listen to the stories of Bassam and Rami, and to find within their stories another story, a song of songs, discovering themselves, you and me, in the stone-tiled chapel where we sit for hours, eager, hopeless, buoyed, confused, cynical, complicit, silent, our memories imploding, our synapses skipping in the gathering dark, remembering while listening all of those stories that are yet to be told. Thank you. That's the middle of a paragon. So I will tell you, if you've read the book, that Rami and Bassam are still the best of friends against all available evidence. And that's one of the things that I hopefully we'll sort of we'll talk a little bit about tonight. The power of stories and storytelling in the face of what we see in the world. Twist. Completely different sort of book. I've spent my life doing lots of different things. I've written a book about a Russian ballet dancer. Go figure, look at me, I'm not a ballet dancer. Look at him, he is a ballet dancer. Now he is a ballet dancer. I've written about Philippe Petit, the tightrope walker who crossed between the World Trade Center towers in New York in 1974 as sort of an advanced metaphor of 9/11. I've written about Northern Ireland. I've written about Frederick Douglass going to Ireland in the 1840s. Lots of different things. I feel very lucky, like extremely lucky, to be somebody who is still interested in people and interested in the world. And every time a new story comes about, I tend to get excited about what this new story will be. This one was a kick in the chest, because I didn't really know anything about it. I was reading a newspaper article, and I heard that, like, most of the internet in South Africa and the western part of Africa had gone down, which affected countries all around the world, and that a boat was going to go out to fix the internet. And I thought, well, that's bizarre. How can a boat go fix the internet? Because as far as I'm concerned, everything goes up in the air, right? Like, all our emails go up into the cloud and then they rain down this very dark rain afterwards. And then you look at your inbox and say, oh my God. But I've always thought that satellites ruled everything, but it's not true. In fact, 95% of the world's intercontinental information travels at the bottom of the ocean, down in the abyssal zone. And I was completely compelled by this, and not knowing anything about technology or anything. I basically went down to South Africa, went to Cape Town, got on a boat, and spent some time with people who repair the broken cables. And so this notion of repair is very important to me. It's also a novel about sabotage, the sabotage of our minds, the new digital colonialism that's going on. All these cables where your information is flowing through, or my information is flowing through, are not only they're owned by the big companies, the Microsofts, the Googles, and so on, but also they own the information about us as well. This is a very scary thing. And a lot of people who are looking at the world geopolitical situation say that the next big war is going to start underneath the water, the cutting of cables and the marshalling of information. So I was fascinated by this, and it eventually became a novel. And I'm just going to read you one piece from this book where the narrator, who's an Irish journalist, go figure, he's out on the water, and he's not me. I mean, he's really not me. I actually dislike him intensely. It's funny to dislike your narrators, like, you know. But then when people thought he was me, I was like, oh, what did I do? So I actually, for my own sanity, I gave him a head of hair, just so I could think he's not in my head. This is not actually me. But in this section, he's talking about the flow of information, and you'll hear me do a whole load of binary numbers, ones and zeros, and the end line will tell you what those binary numbers mean. Nothing, not even words, can stop the flow of time. Things break. Nobody I talked to ever knew the precise point at which it was triggered. All of it took place so far underwater, and most of the sensors were destroyed in the flood. But it was January, and the enormous slide began, an avalanche, an underwater punch to the back of the brain, rupturing the eardrums of whatever was there to hear it, an 800-kilometer slide that could have destroyed anything in its path, passing through the underwater gorges, beyond the jagged cliffs, over the drowned ridges, the bluffs, the crags, the caves, a large flood then, huge, beneath the sea, and a break in the cable. It was already designed for sway, large loops of it given over to possibilities, but it was stretched to the end point. And who knows what it was that cable was carrying at that time? All the love notes, all the algorithms, all the financial dealings, the solicitations, the prescriptions, the solutions, the insinuations, the theories, the chess games, the sea charts, the histories, the contracts, the divorce papers, the computer hacks, the wild lies, the voices, the terror, the nonsense, the known, the unknown, the promises, the porn, the alphabet of flesh, the sing-song of skin, the million wisps of disinformation, the flotsam of all our longings, the jetsam of all our truths, all of it suspended in a series of wet tubes at the bottom of the ocean floor. And who could tell what was travelling through it at the exact point of snap? Say it was you, or say it was me, or say it was Zanelle. A thought that began with a neuron in her brain, sparking other neurons, gathering, multiplying, traveling from her cerebral cortex, through her spine, through her fingers, through her keyboard, through the circuit board, into electrical pulses. 01 00 10 01 001 00000 011 001. And out again, through her building, down a manhole, beneath a street in London or in Brighton, in pulsating packets of light, to Dorset, to Cornwall, and all the way across the English Channel, codes of light at billions of times per second, past France, past Spain, past Portugal, past the Canaries, past Cape Verde and the Ivory Coast, and Ghana, and Cameroon, and Gabon, until it met that flood. That speck of dust, the thing that tipped it over, and the cable was already wildly stretched, encased by a massive torrent of mud and history, and then suddenly it all just stopped, the cable snapped, and there must have been at that moment a tiny leak out of light into surrounding darkness, her message to Conway to say, I love you. Or then again, maybe not. And so, what this is, what this is a love story that relies on the great poem, the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock. It also relies a little bit on the Great Gatsby. It also relies somewhat, or quite specifically, on the Heart of Darkness. And there's a whole section about an apocalypse now, later on, and so on. Basically, it's a novel about how we're so connected, and yet we're completely disconnected, which is a thing I think that myself and Elliot are going to talk about. But before I do, I just want to say thank you to everybody for inviting me here, and in particular Jamie. It's such a pleasure to be here. Jamie Pottenberg, please give her a round. I knew her dad very well. We had a lot of interesting times together. Served and overserved, and it felt the other day when I was here that I was coming home, and I don't know if there's something in the Irish spirit that belongs here. There just seems something that is here that feels very welcoming. Also, thank you to Yetta and everybody who supported all of these programs. And let's work together to bring all this stuff around. Elliot.